Hey there, so this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while now, and it's going to be an overview about ADHD for those that either suspect they might have it or already know they do have it, particularly for adult ADHD. And so the reason why I bring this topic up at all is because one, I have it, and two, it affects pretty much everything I do in my day-to-day life, including how I stay organized or rather don't stay organized. So it really touches every part of my life, and I think it's relevant because we do talk about productivity systems. So why am I so interested in these systems in the first place? Not just because I really want to be productive and super organized, it's because I need them. So let's get into it a little bit. I used ChatGPT to give me a bit of a skeleton here. I found that it's a bit easier if I just generate some stuff, put it in here, and then I riff off that versus me writing everything down first and then trying to edit it. It just doesn't feel nearly as natural. What is it now? Most of us have heard about ADHD in some form or another, ADHD or ADD. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or attention deficit disorder. Now, at some point, they got collapsed into the one, ADHD. It used to be two, now it's just one. And then based on whether you lean more towards the hyperactive side or the inattentive side, then you're given like a subclass within ADHD. But it all just falls under the same umbrella. So essentially, what it is or what really defines it are persistent patterns of inattention, impulsivity, and sometimes hyperactivity, because you might not see that with everyone. Now, so far, that probably sounds a little bit like you, even if you don't have ADHD. And so I feel this is one of the things that unfortunately has led to a lot of people to assume they have ADHD, when in reality, every single person throughout their life are going to experience some of these. You're going to experience inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. That's absolutely normal. That's absolutely human. The point at which it becomes something that might require some intervention is the point at which it starts to interfere with your daily life, these neurodevelopmental conditions. It's a spectrum. And so you're going to have people that exhibit a couple of these behaviors, but it's only when they're so severe that they start to negatively impact their life that it really does become something more than just, oh, sometimes you forget things, or sometimes you're impulsive, or sometimes you're really hyperactive. But broadly speaking, this is how adult ADHD is defined. So what does that actually mean? Let me share some of the awesome traits you get when you are bestowed the ADHD skill in life. So first off, attention and focus. You tend to have both trouble maintaining focus on tasks that are boring or repetitive, and you're also easily distracted by anything and everything that is more interesting than what you're currently doing, which means that you tend to have difficulty completing long projects and planning and all kinds of really fun things. Now, there's a whole explanation for how the neurochemistry that's going on in your brain leads to this, but the simplest way that I can explain it is that you are generally looking for novel and exciting stimulus in the world or in your own mind. And as long as whatever you're doing or thinking or you're participating in is exciting enough, you'll be able to focus on it. And you'll actually even be able to hyper focus on some of those things, as long as, again, it's novel and exciting and interesting. It's like a certain threshold of excitement needs to be crossed in your mind before you're able to activate that focus. Otherwise, you are going to be using a lot of willpower to maintain it. And then anything that is actually more exciting than what you're currently doing is going to very easily derail you and get you to focus on something completely different. In isolation, any single one of these are not too bad, and we all experience them, whether we have ADHD or not. It's when they show up at the same time and make it really difficult to do things that we really need to do in our day-to-day lives. So with regards to organization and planning, again, that is impacted negatively. It's hard to maintain routines or keep workspaces organized because all that requires a certain level of focus and a certain level of repetition. You're doing the same thing every day to maintain a system, to work on a project, to stick with a routine. And so that tends to at some point become less exciting, less interesting. It becomes boring. And so that means it becomes really easy to get distracted from that to focus on other things. And so you end up not doing the daily routines, not following your systems. And so again, it requires a lot of willpower and external systems to help you stay on track. So one of the things that's interesting about ADHD and time management, before I was actually diagnosed, I thought I just had trouble keeping track of time, but it turns out that is part of the diagnosis. So there's a thing called time blindness, which basically means you have a lot of difficulty telling how much time has passed. As you can imagine, that makes it very easy to both procrastinate because it's only been like 10 minutes, not 3 hours, right? And also this big project, well, I can do that in a single day. It's very simple, right? I can knock it out in just a couple of hours. It's actually going to take a couple of days. And so you end up falling behind, procrastinating, and so on. So any kind of system that helps make time visible, so things like timers and time blocking, really helps with that. Otherwise, it's just really hard to tell how much time has passed or is going to be required. Also, because of the thing that we mentioned before about attention and focus, where you want to do the things that are exciting, not just because they're exciting, but because they are literally the only things your brain wants to do or is able to do. That means you end up prioritizing activities and tasks that maybe are not that important, but you do them because they're more exciting or more pressing or more urgent, instead of doing them maybe in the order that would be most efficient or most useful to you. Also, one of the reasons why people with ADHD procrastinate a lot is not because they're lazy. I mean, ever since I can remember that I was in school, this is something that I really thought about myself. It was always very confusing to me. I thought, man, I must just be really lazy. I can't seem to force myself to do the homework or the projects or the things that my classmates were able to do. I guess there's just something wrong with me. I guess I'm just lazy because there are these other things that I can absolutely focus on and hyper focus on. So what is it? And so it turns out that one of the reasons why we actually procrastinate is because it is, in a way, maybe a maladaptive strategy. Because again, if something isn't novel, isn't exciting, or isn't urgent, we are going to have a lot of trouble getting ourselves to focus and do it. And so one of the ways we make something urgent is by leaving it to the last minute. Now, obviously, we wouldn't think of it in those terms, right? But that's really what's happening. It's almost like our brains are going, oh, this task is a little too boring. Let's make it a little bit more exciting by leaving it until the last day. And so that works, but obviously that's not sustainable, not a great way to go through life. So another area where this condition affects me and other people in general is in terms of impulsivity and self-control. And that can present itself in different ways. For some people, or rather one of the most obvious ones, is just having difficulty waiting for someone to finish speaking before you interrupt them. That's not one where I feel I have issues with. I have more issues with this one right here, which is impulsive spending and decision making. I'm not quite sure why that is. I would imagine it's probably related again to something being novel or urgent, that it gives you that dopamine your brain is looking for. And so you end up doing all kinds of less than financially wise things. Another thing about ADHD is that it makes you a little bit sensitive in a couple of different ways. Processing emotions and certain situations in life maybe feel a little bit more intense than somebody that doesn't have ADHD would feel they are. And this is an area where personally I feel that I've been able to lessen the impact of some of these things through mindfulness meditation. I feel that meditation for myself has really helped with this, just giving me that pause when I'm processing emotions or I'm feeling something that might otherwise make me upset or angry or irritable. It helps me put a little bit of distance between the event and my emotions. And I feel like I can almost kind of reason through the emotions versus just feeling them and then acting or reacting impulsively. So another really cool thing about this is that you tend to have issues with your working memory. So we're talking about dates, people's names, important places, instructions, tasks, projects, chores. It just takes a lot more for something to go from short-term memory into long-term memory for you. And so that also obviously means you end up losing a lot of things. This one in particular is something I don't really struggle with, but the reason for that is I feel that I'm just very particular about where I put something so that I don't risk losing it. Everything has a specific place. And obviously all people with ADHD have their own workarounds to these things. And one of the ways that some people handle that is if you've ever been to someone's house or their bedroom and you notice that everything is in different piles and it seems like it's a complete mess. But to the person that put them in those piles, they know where everything is, or this is the pile for that, and this is the pile for this. And so in that chaos, there is some sort of a system. And I definitely subscribe to that method. So you'll probably see behind me, there is a pile of boxes and some other things. I could probably put them in a much more organized way, but that's just the way that makes sense for me. If I start to move things around, I'm going to end up misplacing them, not knowing where they are, where I need them. And so while it looks like a mess, it is my mess, and I know where things are in my mess. And then, of course, as you can imagine, starting tasks and then failing to finish them. You could not imagine the amount of half-finished projects that I have on my computer, in journals, in notebooks, scattered throughout my house, just because at first I'm very excited. It's a new thing. It's shiny. I'm working on it. It's great. But if I'm not able to finish it while I'm still interested in it, that's pretty much the death of that project. So I either find a way to make them continuously interesting, right? Renovating and tweaking them or iterating them, or I just do not finish them. That's the way it works. Or there is an external force like a deadline, like for work, right? Or for school, that's pushing you to finish something that you might otherwise just have given up on. Same deal here. So with regards to more of the daily life sort of things, chronic lateness, missed appointments. Yeah, again, this is related to the time blindness. It's very difficult to get a sense for how long something's going to take. How long is it going to take for me to get ready? How long is it going to take for me to get a point A to point B? So it means I'm either usually slightly late or very ahead of time, because if it's something really important, then I will just add an hour to it, because I can't do 30 minutes. I can't do 20 minutes more. I need a full hour. Otherwise, I know myself, I'm going to end up filling that time with something else. So they're super early or a little bit late. There is no in between. Trouble maintaining consistent routines. Yeah, definitely. Check. Yes, I think that I eat at different times throughout the week. I go to sleep at different times throughout the week. I wake up at different times throughout the week. However, I do exercise pretty much every single day. That's something that's been very difficult for me, but I've just pushed through it and willpowered enough to where it's become a habit. And only on the weekends where I'm not able to do that because I'm just very tired. Otherwise, I do get consistent exercise. And I feel like that is something that has helped me with regards to sleeping well, because otherwise I might have enough energy to keep going. And then I would go to bed 2, 3 in the morning, wake up late, and then just mess up my entire sleep schedule. So exercise has been really helpful for me, actually, with trying to maintain a consistent routine. And then, of course, as you can imagine, just keeping track of all the different documents and dates and important things is very difficult. If it weren't for my alerts that I put in my calendar, I sometimes put physical sticky notes on my screen or on my desk to remind me of the things I need to do. I'll gather important documents and put them in a pile, put a sticky note on top of it just to remind me, these are the documents you need, don't forget them. Wherever possible, I try to automate the payments. So if it has the option for the company to just take the money from my account, I activate that, because that's just one less thing that I'm going to forget. And then, of course, there are other secondary effects which come from just all these different things combined. As you can imagine, it's very difficult for people when you are supposed to be responsible and doing the things you're supposed to do, and then you're late, and then you forget things. And from their side, it feels like you're very flaky or immature, or you're just not able to do things. And so that can be pretty difficult on family members, friends, colleagues. Internally, like I mentioned, when I was in school, you feel there is something wrong with you, because as with other neurodevelopmental conditions, it's not something that is obvious. You can't point to it. You can't say, oh, here's where the problem is. It's something that's happening in your head. And so to yourself and to those around you, it can seem like you're just not putting in the effort. You're just not focusing. You're just not studying. It's because you're lazy, or you're unprepared, or you don't care. And so in the absence of any clear, immediate explanation, people tend to blame themselves without realizing that actually there is a neurological reason why it is so much difficult for you. So what can we actually do about it? One of the ways that some people deal with it is through medication. So different types of medication, some are stimulants, some are non-stimulants. One of the ways that I like to think about these and the differences between them is, say that it's like you're listening to the radio and there's a lot of static. So what the stimulants do is they increase the volume of the music, keeping the static the same so you can hear the music through the noise. And then what the non-stimulants do is they will try and filter the noise so the music stays the same level. You're just getting rid of as much static as possible so you can, again, hear the music. And by music, I mean your ability to focus and concentrate. And there are a bunch of psychological and behavioral interventions, because as you can imagine, especially for adults going through your entire childhood with ADHD, you develop certain additional issues, right? Because as adults, we have certain ways that we deal with these issues, right? Going back to the procrastination, which is, I would really just call it a maladaptive strategy to get yourself to do the things that you need to do. The negative thought patterns you've developed throughout your life due to that inability to focus and remember and stay on task and do all that. And then actually one of the really nice things for me after being diagnosed is that because it has a name now, and I know that this is not just me being lazy or unable to do certain things, there is a difference in my brain that is making it more difficult for me to do certain things that are easier for other people. I can then learn more about it, figure out how it works, what are the strategies that other people apply, what generally works, what doesn't work. And so you can really use that knowledge to then improve your life, because now you know what you're dealing with. It's not just this vague cloud of disappointment that I've never been able to focus in my life. And then finally, we get to practical techniques, which is what the productivity series is all about. So there are all kinds of different tools to help us bridge that gap in our day-to-day life. So for example, things like external reminders, like I mentioned before, time blindness is a real thing. And so anything that can make that more present, more visual, like a physical calendar or a digital calendar, as long as it's visible, setting alarms, setting sticky notes, timers, phone notifications, anything like that really goes a long way. Breaking up tasks into smaller chunks, like the Pomodoro method, if you saw that video in the productivity series. Making checklists so we don't remember all the different little steps that make up an activity. And anything that can help us with time management is really important. So again, that's the Pomodoro method. It's time blocking, it's visual timers. The reason why I really like those systems and why I talk about them is because they work, not just for me and people with ADHD. They really can help anyone. Another one that I found is really useful is this one right here, which is accountability. Not so much the sharing goals with others, but more of the body doubling. It's very different to be working on something by yourself in your house, as opposed to working with other people, either in an office, in a classroom, in a cafe. It just feels very different. It feels like you're expected to be doing something. You're expected to be on task. You're expected to be on track, even if no one is actually holding you accountable. And so I found this one to really help. One of the ways that I use it is that 2 or 3 times a week, I'll just go to a cafe and work from there. And just being in an environment where I know other people are also working on their things and they're focused puts me in the right headspace, and it motivates me so I don't end up just wasting time. I actually feel like I want to do something productive in that time. Now there are ways to do this digitally. You can set up a Google Meet, you can use Zoom. There are applications that are just for this, for people studying, college, or they just want to work on whatever. You essentially join a Google Meet session with one other person or a couple of other people who are also working on their goals. And again, I find that this is one of those things that, whether you have ADHD or not, can be really useful. So if you just need a little bit of a boost or a way to help you focus for whatever important project you need to get done, that's a really good way to do that. And then finally, some of the basic things that we should be doing anyway, whether you have ADHD or not: regular exercise, which again is something that I've really initially struggled to turn into a habit. I'm really careful to not skip more than a day when I really need to, because I know how much it's helped me regulate my mood. It's helped me just get much better sleep. And so it's really important for this, in addition to it just being healthy. And then, of course, trying to maintain a balanced diet and reducing the excess of caffeine or alcohol. I really don't drink at all, but I used to drink a lot of caffeine until it started to impact my sleep negatively. And then I had to stop that. I switched over to decaf. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I got my diagnosis. The thing that I was using to help me maintain that focus, which is caffeine, I stopped using because it was impacting my sleep. I wasn't able to focus at work the day after. So I stopped drinking it. And then the other symptoms that we've already seen about focus and attention and time management started to get really bad. And so that's when I got my diagnosis, and then I started taking medication. So now I'm back, but without impacting my sleep this time. So that was really great. I still obviously drink coffee because I just love coffee, but throughout the week, I only drink decaf. And then on the weekends, I'll allow myself 1 or 2 caffeinated drinks just because I do love the taste. So there we go. That was a very quick overview of some of the main things around adult ADHD. I do want to make more videos in this series, going a little bit more in depth into some of these topics, which I feel people don't talk about too openly for whatever reason, even on YouTube, where you can find videos of just about everything. I don't know about you, but at least in my journey of being diagnosed and then kind of coming up with strategies and thinking back through all the years of the different ways that I've managed this condition without knowing that's what I was doing, have been pretty interesting. And then when I have been able to find other people talking about their experiences and what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, it's always kind of nice because you feel like you're not alone. You're not the only person going through this, not the only adult that's just now realizing they've got this thing that they've dealt with their entire life. And so then what do you do with that? Well, there's a whole community of people out there sharing what's working for them, what's not working for them. So yeah, I hope that was at least a little bit interesting, whether you have the condition or not. So I'll see you in the next one.